This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
So today on the show, I have Mary Cravets, and she's going to talk to us about her entrepreneurial journey, things she's learned, what she does, all those exciting things. So welcome to the show, Mary.
Thanks, Gabe.
Awesome. So Mary is joining us from California, and it looks sunny and beautiful over there like it is here today, which is great.
Yeah.
Tell me, and oddly enough, she knows about where I live, which is crazy. Maybe we'll get into that later. She knows about Amish country and White House chocolates, and that's legit. She actually
I did deep background research on you, Gabe. That's what I do. Dockery. That's the level I do.
I'm impressed. Anyway, so tell me when you first realized that you were an entrepreneur. When did that happen for you?
Well, I was about 2 months into my first business when I realized I had a business. I had moved from California to Arizona and learned something about real estate and thought, hey, I could do this. I could be a realtor. And so I went through schooling, because I was always good at school, and I did 2 weeks solid, and then I got picked up by a agency, and then was in there for a couple of weeks, and I literally had the picture that I would be selling houses out of the office, kind of like McDonald's sells hamburgers, right? It's just like, this is how accidentally I became an entrepreneur. And luckily, I am very impatient. I don't like failing, and I don't like not knowing what I'm doing, and I don't like waiting around to figure it out. So luckily, I was in a group where personal development, business development was really highly, everyone was very into that. And so they said, you got to go to this seminar so you can learn how to build your business. And nice. I went, and I thought, great, this guy in a suit is going to tell me that I got to be just like everybody else, and I got to screw people over for money. I mean, literally, I brought a book to read because I just was going to appease everybody else. And
Wow.
This guy, like, he saved my entrepreneurial bacon. Like, I wouldn't be here if he hadn't said, like, one of the first sentences out of his mouth is he said, nothing will kill your business faster than conformity.
Wow, I like that.
And I was like, I'm here. Okay, I got it. That I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that one statement.
Who is that guy?
Brian Bassini.
Okay. Awesome.
He has a huge coaching organization that primarily focuses on helping realtors build their businesses.
Very cool. Yeah, that's very true. If you blend in, it's very hard to survive.
Yes. Yeah.
So when was that? How long ago was that when you thought you were going to be a realtor?
Let's see. That was 2002, 2003. So yeah, about 15 years ago, just over 15.
Cool.
And gone through many changes since then, many different explorations in the entrepreneurial space for sure.
So take us from there to where we are today in a few minutes.
Okay. So I was in real estate for a couple of years. I got business coaching. I got into the personal development world, and I was like, oh, okay. I get the business isn't about screwing everybody over, because I really was a hippie. And so I was just going to save the world and that kind of thing. So it was like this huge mindset shift that I had to go through. And from there, I was successful with real estate, but it was just I didn't love it. And so then I did some direct sales for a while in a company, and I succeeded at that, but I needed my own thing. And that was right around 2008 when everything crashed. And I didn't really understand what was happening because I was in a little bubble, I guess. But I did know I needed to make money quickly, and I had this background of administrative skills. So I opened a VA business, and I had clients. And what I discovered was they would say, oh, Mary, do this, like build a newsletter. And they say, and what I want is more clients. And I'd look at the whole thing and I'd go, well, if you do this, but don't identify your ideal client or just some kind of basic business thing, I said, you're not going to reach your goals. And they basically nicely said, shut up and do the work I said. And because I'm like, they own their own business, they must know the right way to approach this. And over and over and over, I was right. And so I had to I was able to, through that experience, become aware of a skill set that I had, a perspective that I've since honed, to understand how the pieces work together in a business and how to do things in the most streamlined way. So after about 2 years of selling my expertise at like the bargain basement price of administrative services and going through the most, like a real killer depression around the business, which is what happens when you're not valuing what you do. I went to a presentation in the middle, again, somebody, just one thing, and it just turned me around. The guy says the majority of the unhappiness in the world comes from people settling for what's passable instead of reaching for what's possible. In that moment, I put on my big girl panties. I basically quit my job, my business, phased out my clients, and then said, I'm a business advisor. And that was pretty terrifying because it's like, oh, look at who's so big for our britches.
How long ago was that?
That was 7.5 years ago.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You've survived, even though it was
I
scary.
did. Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I have shut down, let me think here, 3 or 4 businesses in the last decade. Like things that were not.
What do you mean shut down?
Just shut down things that weren't working. Just like, you know, just like you said, like, you know, I hated it, or even if I loved it, it was a bad idea, or, you know, 3 or 4 businesses and a couple marriages and a couple bad partnerships. And that is, in my mind, the true sign of an entrepreneur, when you're ready to just burn it to the ground and start over.
Yep.
It's super scary.
Absolutely. It's terrifying. And I watch people, they've got that, what is it called? The stop loss. It's like, or no, it's the sunk cost bias. It's like, but I put so much in, and so it seems more valuable, even though it's killing me. But you have a bias towards it to keep going instead of saying, I want to build something that fits every criteria I have, not just the money or not just the difference I want to make in the world or using my skills. It's like, it's got to hit all of it if you're going to be tremendously successful, I believe.
Yeah. When do you think, let's dig into that, because I think that's very important to figure out. So you said people get too attached to the sunk cost in a bad idea. And then they're not thinking about having all the perfect pieces. They're like, well, I can settle for this. So that's one thing. And then the other thing related to it is I have a business it's basically break even. I bought it a year ago. And I'm on the fence sometimes about, like, do I really need to engage in it and like take it to the next level, or it's organically growing and in like 5 years it'll probably be a pretty decent paycheck. Do I just leave it sit and run? So anyway, I'll leave it at that. What are your thoughts on all of that? That was a big question. Sorry.
Let's see. Well, I think with like finding that thing that really is entirely a yes, entirely a fit, you've got to, I built my business on my values. And I think that's one of the most important things. And defining values as the way you are inherently, like your whole life, you've always been this way. You've always wanted to save the world. You've always wanted, whatever it is, it has to be based in those values. And my 3 are freedom. I have to be free to go to my family, help them if they need it. I need to be free from location. I need freedom to do the things I want to do, financial and otherwise. I need to be making an impact. If I'm not making a difference in people's lives, it's just so boring. It kills my soul. I won't do it. And my 3rd is variety. If I'm not having different things happening, like different, I work with service-based businesses. So if I'm not working with a variety of coaches and doctors and lawyers and things like that, I'm just like, oh, shoot me. I don't care that I'm making money. I'm just so bored, and I'll just ditch it and go find something else. Yeah. So like every time I go into my business to make changes, and like, does this better support, or is it going in alignment or out of alignment with my values? So the problem with just going on your values is that people sometimes stop there and they're like, I won't do anything that's against my values, which is great, except for there's another piece, and that is you have to have structure for profitability. Otherwise, it's like you're just bleeding heart hippie, like I used to be, and broke. It's got to hit. And so, of course, the money piece is pricing, market demand, differentiation. I mean, there's all the structure piece to that. But I think it's about being very intentional in both the internal and the strategic, both pieces. It's a real marriage. And when you get to that point where something isn't fitting, you can either change when it's a little uncomfortable, or you can wait until it's burned you out, it's burned itself to the ground. You know, they say if you don't make a choice, life will make one for you. So I think one of the keys to making sure you're building a business that is really hitting on all cylinders and really successful is you've got to be evaluating very consistently and get outside perspective.
Yeah.
You've got to get outside perspective.
For sure. That's probably, yeah, I would totally agree with that point. If you're not getting outside perspective, you are really screwing yourself. In some senses, there's better and worse perspective, but any outside perspective is better than none. It's
so true. I just met with some new mentors the other day, and what they were talking about was totally wrong, but didn't apply, but it got me out of like the patterns of my thinking to question it. It's incredibly important, I think.
Yeah.
So with what you're doing and your business that's like, okay, should I just let it go organically? I mean, what do you ultimately want out of it?
I like one of your values. It entertains me.
What's that?
You
variety?
Said variety. Yeah. So like, it's like, I'm super entertained by it. So maybe that's all I need. And it's not bleeding money.
There you go. One of the easiest things like tests is it giving you more energy or taking away more energy from you?
Yeah.
And if it's giving you energy and you just are entertained, like you said, by it, and it's just going, like, why make it into something hard if it's easy right now?
That's a good statement. There's I don't remember who I was talking to. It might have been somebody on my show, or it might have been somewhere else, but they were like, oh yeah, it was somebody on my show. It was Aaron, like I said, I'm horrible with last names. Aaron Feel, I think, File. She was like, had this belief that everything has to be super hard. And so if it wasn't hard, she wasn't doing it. And I was like, wow, that seems like a self-defeating belief and a frustrating one. But it also, but we dug into it more, and I'm actually curious about what you think about it too, is like, we dug into like figuring out what hard work we should do. Cause I'm not of the belief that everything's just easy peasy and, simple to do. And so that's not the answer either. So that's like,
yeah.
So how do you know when you're doing the right hard things?
I don't know how to sum this up, but I've got all these. Okay, so first of all, on my computer, I'm looking at it right now. I've got this little note, and it says, "Am I willing for this to be easy?" Okay, because so many of this, and this is like based in a lot of, I don't remember the research, but it's really powerful. It's this tiny little statement. Am I willing for this to be easy? But it makes you question what you're doing. Like, am I making this harder than it needs to be? So there's the hard stuff that's like challenging your comfort zone and pushing you to the next level and breaking out of patterns so that you can have that next level. But then there is hard just because you won't hand it off, or you think you're the only one who can do it, or you have a belief that if it isn't hard, it isn't going to work, or if it isn't complicated, it's not going to work. And I think it's a fine balance. And you really, for me, it's just checking in to like, how do I feel in my gut about this? Is this hard because I see how it connects to everything else and it's unfamiliar, but it makes sense? Or is it hard because I just feel like I have to do something, that things just have to inherently be difficult? And I don't think things have to inherently be difficult. And I think we have a lot of power over how difficult we make them by just how we approach them. I mean, I will do things, and never train your spouse on some of these things because they will come back to bite you. My husband works with me in my business and I'm stomping around because something's feeling kind of aggravating or whatever. He's like, Mary, are you willing for this to be easy? And I was like, you know, I mean, thank you, honey, for really embracing this.
Just don't tell me about it right now.
Yeah, seriously. Let me have a little fit and then I'll get into the Zen place of tackling. And for me, when things get really tough, I am remembering more and more to reach out to my network, to my coaches, to my people, because a lot of times there's a way through that is easier. So we can't see.
Yes, I would agree with that. Here's the embarrassing part of the show for me. Where did we first connect?
Sweet.
I totally forget.
Lisa Curly Malice.
Okay, she just popped on.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where it was.
Well then, hi, Lisa.
Cool.
Yeah, she connected us somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a big small world, so I couldn't remember. Cool.
Yeah.
So a couple other questions. I have a belief that I think that everybody needs a little bit of adversity to be productive. What do you think about that?
This is incredibly timely. My whole business is built on the fact that I burned out completely. I was going in a million different directions. I burned out, and I had to find a way that was simplified to generate clients. I couldn't mess around with, I'm going to try online. I'm going to do this. I had 4 hours of energy a week. So that was adversity. But what came out of it is a structure that people use worldwide now to generate clients without getting into a ton of technology. It's super streamlined, super simple, very customized to them. So that adversity I had definitely, it laid the foundation for my entire business, my success, my client success. However, I got very accustomed to being worried about things, worried about money. Where's the next client? Like that really got ingrained in who I am. And so when push came to shove and the bank account was getting low, I was like, okay, let's go make it happen. And about 6 months ago, I realized I literally have built my business on worry. And there has got to be a better motivator because I keep going into this pattern of getting myself into a place where I have to worry. So I have some people who help me around mindset. And I literally yesterday sent her an email. I'm like, okay, we got to dig into what is a better motivator than worry, because this pattern sucks. It just sucks. I think adversity can make us look at what we're really made of, and it can help us hone our skills. But I don't believe anymore that adversity has to be the motivator to get anything done. I think I want to do better than that.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And I used to just blow things apart. Relationships
Yes.
or products or business ideas. Like I've intentionally wisely shut down a few businesses, like I mentioned before. But that doesn't count all the things that I've done and then imploded because they were going too well. So that's not the type of adversity that people need or that I'm thinking more about these days. But I do sometimes almost create in my head a little bit of fictional adversity to get me to where I'm going, because I've faced a lot of adversity that's actually super valuable to me now, but I don't want to go back into that type of adversity. So
yeah,
and conflict and like all the shit that comes with that. So I was just curious. So
yeah, it's such a anyway. You can really mess with your mind when you start to get into it.
Anyway, yeah, we probably shouldn't totally destroy that word for people.
No.
So then, very related. What do you think is? You have a really interesting line in something you sent over to me. You said, "Go for things you're 60% qualified for," which relates to what I'm going to ask you. It's a little probably hard to quantify this way, but it's the only way I know how to say it. is like, what percentage of mindset is the key in business versus like having the skill? And business is an art form. It's not a perfect formula, but
Yeah.
maybe we can start there.
Yeah. So I would say, like, when I was early on, I had the gift of having to make money. I had to. It wasn't like, oh, this is fun, let's see how it goes. Like, I had to make money. So so I had like the mindset I needed, which was adversity. I had the motivation I needed. So fine tuning my belief in money and all of that was just like, seriously, I don't have time to navel gaze. I need to get into action, strategy, all of that. So I would say until I hit about 150,000, action and strategy was the most important thing. Now that I've blown past that and I'm, headed towards the 500,000 mark in my business, mindset for some reason has come up as more and more important, more limiting. And I don't know if it's because the strategy is so simple and you just plug it in and it works, and you can have kind of a crappy mindset and it's like, well, it doesn't matter. But now that I'm going into like this advanced way of developing my business, I'm meeting all of this like mental resistance, this belief in how big I can become and what does that mean, and does it mean I'm a show off and that kind of thing. So I think at different times in your business, you're just going to meet different needs. I don't think you can ignore one or the other. In early parts of the business, I work with a lot of people who are about 2 to 5 years in business and they've hit some kind of plateau. And usually they've worked on their mindset. They worked on all this stuff like, oh, I'm heart-centered and I accept money into my life and I'm abundant, but they don't know what to do about it. So I consider the way I work with people very outside in, which is let's get the structure in place. Let's make the steps and the words and the what to do, where to go, what to say so simple, so personal to you that it's easy. And all the mindset shit, it just doesn't have authority because you're so clear on what to do. So when you're clear about what to do and the right actions and the strategy is in place, then you start getting different results and then your mindset starts to shift. So they're entangled for sure. That's long answer.
No, that's good. I like it. I have a pretty similar entrepreneurial history. I think the first 10 years, I just took action and just what works, what doesn't work, how many things can I break and fix in a day, like all that kind of stuff. Really, I'm joking, but it's true.
I totally get it. I'm relating.
And so that was like, I think that was my first decade of being an entrepreneur. And I had some mindset, like I really need to make money. Like that was my mindset, like you, like I couldn't afford to not make money. And there's plenty of times I was completely broke. But yeah, I think you're right. There's probably a stability point where you get past 6 figures, and you get to, you're starting to think about 7 figures. And then you're like, man, my simple mindset isn't working anymore. I need a more sophisticated model, just like when you start a business, like you should sell one thing. And then as you grow, you can extend product lines or all the other things you can do to kind of increase. But I guess, like you said, it's more of a cycle, and it's going to be kind of cycling or going, back and forth between take action, figure things out, like do work, and then sit back and figure out mindset and like, did I do the right work because I had the right mindset or not? And it's definitely a cycle. Because I think what people do wrong sometimes early on is they work on really complex mindset, and that doesn't matter because you're not even good at selling one thing.
No, complex mindset, complex business model. And I work with a lot of people in service industry. So it's like, I sit down with you, I perform a service, I leave. Those are my people. And what they end up getting sucked into is, I have to get an online funnel. I have to make sure my Facebook ad and my and service. And the fact is, majority of service-based providers, they get their business from referrals or from speaking. It's like, this is proven. I'm not making this up. And yet they'll send tens of thousands of dollars on online system, which is kind of like, you think of a pool, like where all the prospects are, and it's in the shallow end. They're fishing the shallow end where there's tons of competition. So the deep end where all the clients are. And so getting people to accept that it could be simpler, lower tech, and more focused when they're, going for that first 6 figures. People don't believe me. I just, they're hopeful, but they don't believe me. But when they do, it works. So yeah,
That's
overcomplicating. That is a huge, huge obstacle that people, and it's understandable because we have so much information coming at us all the time. So many gurus who are just like absolutely convinced of their tactic is the tactic that everybody should use. Their mindset tool is the one that everybody should use. And people are not cookie cutter. And they feel terrible when they let themselves be treated that way. And it doesn't work.
for sure. And I forget who says it, but simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I can't remember. I think it's like Leonardo da Vinci or something like that. But
yeah,
when we simplify things, then we have the ability to be successful. And this is really hard to learn, even though I know what you just said. I have one product that I have tried multiple times to launch into a new channel, and it just doesn't work. Like I've spent probably $15,000 on it. And I finally came to a full, clear realization 2 weeks ago. I'm like, why the hell am I even trying this? I have a channel that works. It's my most profitable product. It works great. Why am I doing this? And even though like 3 or 4 months ago, I had a guest tell me something really important. He's like, focus on what's effective. He's like, don't optimize. Be effective. And it's like, wow, that's hard to hear for like an internet marketing guy. But
yeah.
that is like, holy shit, that's totally true. And he's like, if you can get 2% of every single contact in this channel, just do more contacts. And I was like, I know that.
Yes.
I'm like, this
Yes.
is not rocket science. And it's like, it took me, that moment was huge. But then even a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, why am I bothering with this channel that doesn't produce when I could spend that same money and double my output in the other channel? Like, what is wrong with me?
But it's so common though. I had a woman who owned a recruiting company a couple years ago. She said, okay, I'd like to hire you. And 80% of our business comes from referral. And what we'd like to do is focus on that other 20%. It's like, and I said, I would be happy to work with you. And what I can share is we will likely look at how to get more out of what's working. So my phrase that I've got all of my clients kind of programmed with is stop asking what else can I do? Ask what's working. Don't ask what else, ask what's working.
Yeah.
Because that's when I burned out, that's the only thing that saved me, because I only had the energy to put time and focus and energy into what was working. And it's like, you don't have to burn out to have that simplicity and focus in your business. You just don't. I don't recommend it, by the way.
No, and you can watch little companies do that. You can watch big companies do that. They all do it.
I know. It's astonishing. I was working with big companies. Yes. I was working with a bank one time, and my client, it was very odd. I don't usually work with like employees, bank managers. And she's like, well, the company wants us to increase auto loans this month. I was like, fantastic. What is your best channel for producing auto loans? What have you done in the past that's worked? And she said, I don't know. I said, your company has this information. I'm sure. No, they don't. Like, you're reinventing the wheel every single time you want someone to produce. That is, and it blew me away. This was probably about 5 years ago, and I was still earlier on in this business. So I was shocked to find that bigger companies, the big credit unions, is making mistakes that I kind of thought was in the realm of small business.
Yeah. Google does it too. So
Google. You can Google.
I watch Google do it all the time. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, I love your core stuff. What are you doing over here? But finding what your thing is, or like what you're actually about as a business owner and as a business, is a little bit of a journey. It's not, I think we all enter the market and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. And you may still be doing that, but then like really figuring out the big picture takes me forever anyway.
I think I think people are really hobbled when they try to get it perfect, when they really are like, I have to figure, oh my gosh, I work with a lot of coaches and they're all like, I have to figure out my niche. I'm like, no, you don't. You need to get clients.
Thank you.
So, and
that's what I heard more of. Everybody's like, niche, niche, niche. You don't even know what a niche is, and you don't know what. I was talking to a coach about this the other day. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of earn while you learn. It's like, go out, get some clients, get the right clients, get the wrong clients, get ones who don't pay you well, get ones that do pay you well, and then find out where you're most brilliant, where you're most effective, where it's easy for you, where people just light up because you show up, and then you develop your niche or your specialty while you're getting paid to discover it. Again, I work with, I encounter a lot of people who they're like, well, my spouse makes enough money so I can take my time learning this. And I'm like, God, that is just really hobbling you. I'm sorry you're not broke.
Yeah, I like that guy. No, those people are hard to move. They're super hard to get anywhere. Yeah. And then they're frustrated 6 months down the road. And it's like, well, you didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to somebody the other day about their niche, and they're like, I don't know my niche. They're a coach too. They're literally just becoming a coach. I'll introduce you guys. But
okay.
I was talking to them the other day, and they're like, I don't know what my niche is. I'm going to this training and blah, blah, blah. I'm doing all these things. And I'm like, well, don't worry about like what industry you're going to work in, or if you're going to work with men or women or like any of that stuff. I'm like, that's not actually the niche that I want you to look for. I'm like, just figure out who you get along with really well, who you like, who you would actually go like have a drink with or go have coffee with and like hang out and not work, like, and just be like, oh yeah, you're cool. Like, what's up? Like, catch up. And like, you would enjoy being around them. Like, that's way more important than how much money they're going to pay you. It's way more important than what industry they're in. It's way more important, all that stuff, because bad clients are hell, and bad clients are bad.
They are.
So
they are, but they will teach you a lot.
Oh yeah.
And you will move forward faster by getting paid by bad clients than you will sitting at home drawing diagrams about who your ideal client is. I mean, and to me, the work that my industry of business development that they put out there, that they say is required in order to go out there and get clients, is absolutely astonishing. I'm kind of like, I like figuring out my own way of doing things. And so I don't always know what's out there in my market space. I had someone come to a webinar that was about creating your messaging. Like, when someone says, hey Gabe, what do you do? What's your answer? Like, how do you respond so that your ideal client is like, oh, I need that. So I do this 40-minute webinar, and this woman's like, oh my God, we just figured out in 35 minutes on a group webinar what I signed up for another course. It was like 300 pages to figure out her ideal client. And I was like, you gotta be shitting me. I'm like, are they making it complicated so that you get paid more? I don't know. I don't know the thinking behind it. Cut to the chase. Let's get moving. Okay, off my soapbox.
No, I'll tell you. Because when things are that simple, they're not very sexy, and people don't.
No, they're not.
People don't apply them. Like, it can't be that simple. It's that simple. You just got to do it. The hard part is doing it. Sometimes, and sometimes it's not even that hard. But yeah, if people make things so complex that you have to go through 8,400 steps, you'll never complete it. You'll never be able to go back to them and say, oh, it didn't work, because they'll be able to say you didn't complete it. It's just a thing.
Yes. And that is a big trend. I'm hoping I'm seeing that come to a close. But you've seen these programs that are like, it sounds so amazing because they bury you in content. It's like, oh, you get 64 modules and 3 calls a week with a group of a mentor of a person who's, I mean, it's just, you get stuck. If you already are paralyzed, learning more like massive learning is not the answer.
Yeah.
It's just not the answer. I'm like, I'm the person who like picks up a book, I read something, it says to do something, and I'm like, I will probably not read the rest of the book because I'm off going and applying it and making money at it. So that's why my clients are more learners, and so they need my, let's go make money, go serve people. They need that energy.
Yeah, if you don't, you should, in my opinion, you should balance learning with action. So if you read for 8 hours, you should go try it out for 8 hours. Like
you really have to.
If you cycle through that, then you'll actually learn. Otherwise, you're just like, it's just like knowledge consumption, and it's not a good idea.
It's a protective barrier between you and being rejected, between failing, being called. I mean, I have this theory that basically you're not, if people aren't criticizing you, then you're probably not growing fast enough. You're definitely not stepping outside your comfort zone. I was criticized yesterday. I had to change some programs on people, and I'm fulfilling my promise of what I said I was going to deliver. It just had to adjust. And a lot of people were fine with it because I'm real clear about it. And then someone came back and they're like, they were unhappy. And I was like, oh, this is good. Anytime I get criticized, I'm right before a growth spurt. It's like this weird way the universe works or something. So.
I totally agree. I always tell people when we run cold email campaigns, I'm like, if you're not getting 1 or 2 fuck yous a week, then it's not working yet.
Seriously. Okay, people don't quite go to that level with me, but I have had people call me sleazy, call me all these things because the space you work in, the space I work in, people are like, they need to make money. They need to build their business. They're trying other things. They're scared. Right. And we get to be the punching bag occasionally. And I really believe in being gracious and also disconnecting when someone is really committed to making me the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're totally right that you should just go out there and get clients and work for whoever, good and bad. I think that it's one thing that I wish I would have known when I went through that phase more is that you can set up almost any relationship with a safety exit, with like a safety hatch.
Yes. Oh, yes.
If you open up the relationship with like, hey, Mary, like I want to hire you and try this out for a little bit, but just so you know, because I do this with almost all my vendors, like we're going to try it for like a month and we're going to do an evaluation, and then we're going to try it for another month and do an evaluation, and we're going to try it for another month. And at 90 days, we'll probably know if we like each other. But just so you know, I reserve the right to just bail out after 30 days if it's not a fit. And most people don't do that with vendors, but they would probably do it a little bit more than business owners or coaches or consultants doing that with their clients, because they so bad want a client that they don't put in structure into the arrangement, and then it's just hell forever. So
yeah, I actually, that's one thing that when people are starting and they're figuring it out and they might be getting bad clients, I usually do a 90-day, because I really think that people can, like in the first 30 days, can get really freaked out, especially if they're newer in business. They can get really freaked out, and letting them out of that it's like getting them to push their comfort zone and then basically dropping them. And so I almost always ask for a 90-day commitment. It's like, I commit to you, you commit to me. And if it isn't working, then we'll part friends. But I can't in good conscience say, you're going to be able to understand what could happen, and I'm going to be able to have a good idea of where to take you in 30 days.
Oh, no. I think you should think long term, but I guess to be more clear, I feel like the business owner, the provider, the coach or consultant should have a faster out than the client, because I'll fire you today.
Okay.
I'll fire you today if you're mean to my team, or if you're disrespectful. Bye.
Oh yeah.
It's like I don't care what happened or whatever. I'll fire you. I'll refund you any remaining money. Goodbye. Like, it's just not.
I totally agree. I misunderstood. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with what you're saying too, though, because I also tell people part of my qualification to come in and work with me is like, nothing happens overnight. We don't have contracts, but if you're planning to do this for 1 or 2 months, don't sign up. I don't need your money. I don't want anything to do with anything like that, because this is going to take you 3 or 4 months to really hit your stride. So it's, so I agree with you, but I was just thinking, like, I think early on, I didn't realize that I could fire clients. And when I fired clients, my business grows.
Yes. And so, so I was talking to my father, who's a longtime employee. I mean, he's retired now, but he and my mom, they think my husband and I are a bit crazy because we have our own business. And
You are.
yes, you pretty much have to be a little bit crazy.
Yep.
But I was saying, you know, I was sharing with him. I told him about my business. I'm like, I had to let a client go. This was many years ago, and I said they don't want to pay. All these things were happening, and it was just miserable. And what does my dad say to me? Well, that's why they call it work, Mary. And so I was all of a sudden I was 8 years old again. I'm like, oh, my daddy, you know, he knows better. Like, suck it up, Mary. Work has to be miserable. And yeah, so I had to work through that a little bit. Go, no, actually, I know more than my parents about running a business, and letting go of people who are draining the life out of you, really important. Yeah. Or unkind.
Yes.
Just mean.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need that shit.
You don't need that. Yeah. There was, like 6 or 7 years ago now. Wow. I thought it was more recent. I was helping a client, and like, they just had a poisonous person in their group. And I'm like, yes, they know how to do the technical work of the position. But I'm like, the second you let them go, and I'm like, I'll help you fire them if it's that big of a deal. So I helped them fire them, which firing sucks no matter good or bad reason. It just sucks.
Yes, it does.
But we fired him, and like, instant lift. The business started growing, and it's like one person in a pretty big organization. It was like 25 employees then. One person ruining everything. And they weren't even like upper management. They were just like at the entry kind of level. And it's like, people are so afraid of firing clients. They're so afraid of firing a bad team member because they think there's no more out there. And like, that's insanity. I always tell people there's 100.
It really is.
There's 100 people that can do my job. There's definitely 100 people that can do your job too. And there's thousands and thousands of clients and people out there. So move on.
Yep.
And you're releasing that person to do what they should be doing, or to learn.
Absolutely.
They need to have a learning period, and you may be a part of that. And that's why you're the boss.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah. So I don't know what rabbit trails even on, but
I don't know where we went.
It's been lots of fun. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about like who you work with, kind of how you help them through? Maybe, obviously you wouldn't use names, but maybe like a couple case examples of things that you've done that have been helpful to people. Just could tell us a little bit more here in the rest of our time.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Basically, I work with people who've been in business for a little while. I'm hired to help them significantly grow their business so they're not working nights and weekends. And we focus on client generation, simplifying the process, being very intentional in a handful of key areas. And what happens is when you focus in on those key areas, customize them for your ideal client and all of that, then your results are just exponentially better. And it's happened time after time after time. One of my higher end clients who works with me one-on-one is former CFO of Microsoft North America. And he called me up the other day and he's like, hey, Mary, I just made $82,000 this week. And I was like, yay, John, high five. You know?
That's cool.
You know, and that's very cool. I love working with people who have these incredible stellar connections, this corporate background that they are not necessarily leveraging appropriately, because there's once you've worked in corporate for a long time and you have these high level connections, you can do one of two things. One, be so afraid of harming the relationship by actually engaging in, conversations about business that you don't do anything. And the other is just burning through them because you don't approach them strategically and elegantly. And then you just burn those relationships. So I love working with people who are very well connected and seeing them just move very quickly. Most of the people I work with are not at that level. They're a couple years in business and they're not yet consistent with client generation. You have clients, you have a sense of what you're doing, but you just know if it was a little more dialed in, if there was structure around it, not cookie cutter, not like my way is your way and everybody's way, but really dialed into specifics, like what do you say? What is your messaging? Where do you show up? Where your clients are in high concentration? Really dialing that in And what happens is, like, I have a client who's a coach in Kansas City, and we determined she's got a lot going into the golfing industry. It was just a really hot market for her. So she went to a golf trade show, and she went around, talked to people. We dialed in her 30-second introduction, like exactly what her ideal clients were thinking, worrying about, wanting. And she walked away with 10 leads from that. And she didn't have a booth at this trade show. She was just walking around. So
Nice.
it's like getting really intentional makes all of the difference. But my clients in general, they increase 50 to 100% in their business year over year. And they know what to do. They're not going, oh, should I do this or that? Am I being pushy? They don't have all that doubt because we've gotten super clear. And I think the combination is the structure, like really specific structure, and then having consistent feedback, because there's so much detail and nuance that happens in everybody's business. And so the structure is great, but then when you need to fire a client, how do you do that? When you need to raise your prices, what are the words that you're going to feel very empowered and be very respectful of your clients? Like, how do you do that? That's where I think the programs I do, I lead group masterminds that have an incredibly high degree of personal interaction with me, not somebody I've trained in my method, but me. I can do this because I charge well for my programs. It's not going to be the Walmart of business mentoring, but it's still I believe, very accessible. I can give a high degree of service, keep people moving, keep people in action, and making adjustments as they go. So I'm super excited about it. It's been working. So yay, that's what I'm looking for.
Results are all that matter in business.
Seriously.
I love how on your site it says success is simple. Letting it be easy is the hard part.
Yep. That's been a theme. We keep simple, easy, adversity. Like, how does that all meld together?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the most important thing that I know we touched on a lot today is that you're never going to see it all yourself. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter.
No.
Like, you need a mirror. You need somebody that's going to go like, why are you doing that? Or that seems to be working. Why are you not paying attention to that? Like, in some senses, like I said, if somebody's not ready to work with you, then that's fine, but they should talk to somebody, even if it's somebody outside the business, and you may or may not want it to be your spouse. Sometimes that's good. A lot of the times, Mary says no way. A lot of the times,
usually no.
Personal, because you're talking about your livelihood, your security. Like, you bring up a lot of other emotion into that conversation. Whereas if somebody that's just more objective, I don't think anybody's totally objective, but somebody that's more objective will be able to, give you just perspective. And so I would encourage everybody to definitely check out Mary's site. And what is that, just the easiest way to contact you there?
Oh, yeah. There's two things you can do. If you just want to check out like kind of the whole smorgasbord of who I am, what I do, all that, my crazy backstory and all of that, you can go to simplygetclients.com. Very simple, simplygetclients.com. That's our focus. If you'd like to pick up some resources, an explainer video of how our programs work, there's also a really great training on this one page. You go to moreclientslessmarketing.com, moreclientslessmarketing.com. You get a bunch of resources all in one place. You do have to opt in for that, but it's great stuff, real good training.
Very cool.
And that's where you can get an opportunity to talk to my team too, to see if there's something we can do to help you.
Excellent. We'll include those in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on today, Mary. This has been a blast.
Yeah, my pleasure, Gabe. Thanks so much for having me.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.